everybody. Thank you so much for being here to celebrate Celeste and this fabulous book, and also the Days of Girls organization. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that we gather on the traditional lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present. Let's take a moment tonight to honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe, a people who are still here continuing to bring their ancient heritage to light. I also have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. Just a couple events that folks might be interested in coming up. This Thursday, the 5th, Washington State Senator Karen Kaiser and City Councilwoman Jeannie Cole Wells will be joining us for a conversation about making political change on the state level. Then on Wednesday, October 18th, Vidya Krishnan will be joining us for an event co-sponsored by Seattle Tuberculosis Research Advancement Center about her book, Phantom Plague, How Tuberculosis Shaped History, which discusses socioeconomic factors which limit TB treatment and how we can continue fighting this age-old foe. Without further ado, Joy McCullough writes books and plays from her home in the Seattle area where she lives with her husband and 2 children. She is the author of the middle grade novels Across the Pond, A Field Guide to Getting Lost, not starring Zadie Louise, Code Red, and Basil and Dahlia, and the picture books Harriet's Ruffled Feathers, Champ and Major, First Dogs, and The Story of a Book. Her debut novel, Blood, Water, Paint, was longlisted for the National Book Award and was a William C. Morris Debut Award finalist. Celeste Mergens is the founder of the award-winning global nonprofit Days for Girls International. Since 2008, Days for Girls has restored days of education and opportunity to more than 2.6 million women and girls in 144 countries by providing a perhaps surprising key to increased equity in communities, access to sustainable menstrual care products, and vital conversations and education. Days for Girls is a 2-time Girl Effect champion, won the Seed Award for Gender Equity and Entrepreneurship, and was named by the Huffington Post as a Next 10 organization poised to change the world in the next decade. I'd also like to see a show of hands of those who came who were involved with Days for Girls. And let's give those people a big Celeste herself has been featured in Oprah's O Magazine, Forbes, and the Stanford Social Impact Review. She was awarded the Art Purpose Prize and named Washington State's Mother of the Year, Company Global Impact Entrepreneur Top 10 Women, 2019 Global Washington Global Hero, and the Women's Economic Forum Woman of the Decade. So Celeste has done a few things. And she also typically gives over 50 keynotes every year, speaking for groups including Apple, Goldman Sachs, Nike, Intel, Columbia Apparel, and the UN. Without further ado, it is my absolute honor to turn it over to our speakers this evening.
Thank you so much, Milo. So I am so thrilled to be here. I know that a children's book author might seem like a strange match, but there was a reason Milo asked me to do this, and that is because my newest novel for 10 to 13-year-olds is called Code Red. And it is about a girl who gets involved locally in Seattle in menstrual equity activism, including making, oh, there it is. You can see the sewing machine and the cloth pads on the front. And she gets involved in an organization that is making cloth pads for that get distributed to people in other countries. And that is because my editor, when we were deciding what my next book would be, came to me and said, I don't know quite what the story would be, but there's this organization called Days for Girls, and I think maybe there's just like, you could find a novel there. And I did. So it was really exciting to find out that you were going to be here and doing this event. Yeah, so I was just so excited.
We both have red glasses.
We do. We did not coordinate. But we're going to talk. We're going to have time to take your questions. But first, I would love to hear you read from your brand new published book, The Power of Days.
I just have to acknowledge that people have come so far to do this, and at least one in the room never goes farther south than Arlington and is here in the room. And so we've got to call that out. I'm so grateful for your support. Thank you for coming. It means so much. And I hope you will allow me just a few brief, small snippets from the book that relate to this moment, and they're stories of those we serve. I want to acknowledge that in the room we have Severina, who is in this book. We have Lou Rochelle, who had an amazing event on Saturday. I'm so, next year we'll have this coordinated ahead. And phenomenal volunteers in my amazing family. And one of them that is in the book, several of them actually, but one of them in the book I know you want to know, and he's hiding in this audience, and he is the one and only Don Mergens. Okay, my family has sacrificed so much, and it means a lot that you showed up here on top of all of that. I'm having the time of my life, but they've given up a lot, and I just want you to know these hurdles wouldn't be what it is with them. Okay, so with that, I get to share a small piece, and if you would allow me, I want to start out with one that relates to what's on the table. Who already knows why these apples are on the table? Dawn does, Reed does, Kayla Leah does. Okay, so this is from the very first chapter of the book, and it's about a moment that really forged how I see things in the world. It really helped, although at the time I considered her Cruella de Vil. And here it is. When I was around 5 years old, at one of the state parks, I was admiring the sparkle of the sun-drenched sidewalk, feeling its warmth on my bare feet, when the glint of a rhinestone collar on a small white dog caught my attention. The flash of its collar twinkled up the matching leash to the manicured hand of the woman holding a perfectly good, half-eaten apple. She stared down at me before throwing the fruit into a nearby garbage container. It had been a while since I'd had eaten a meal, and all I could think of was how delicious that apple would feel in my insides. I was working on a plan to rescue it from the dumpster and still find a way to climb back out when I felt the woman looking me up and down, her nose crinkled as if I had just offered her a day-old unrefrigerated tuna fish sandwich. Her eyes narrowed. "Where are your shoes, girl?" she asked. I stood as tall as I could. "I'm toughening my feet," I said. This stranger didn't need to know that we were in between homes, that I had the unfortunate habit of wearing my shoes out at the side, or that even though my mom had shaved down the heels to level them, my latest pair were beyond rescue. Where were my shoes? I hadn't left them behind in the car or scattered on a patch of gravel. I had no shoes. It was as if I suddenly stood in front of a mirror and saw myself reflected through this woman's eyes. When she looked at my bare feet and clothes much too small for my undersized frame, she saw a little girl, unkempt and unworthy. I looked down at my dirty feet, and for just a moment, I saw myself the way she did, and I felt small, poor, and ashamed. A sudden warm assurance came over me. I was more than what she saw. I wanted to tell her as much. I am not from here. I am not what you see. But when I looked up, she was gone. That moment scratched at me for years. I used to think of that woman as Cruella de Vil. See, I told you. The villain from one of the few movies I watched as a child. And it wasn't until recently that I finally saw the woman's momentous part in my life as a gift. At that very young age, I was shown a truth. We get to decide who we are. Was I simply a poor girl living wherever we landed, or was I more? That still small assurance sustained and guided me. I was not my clothes. I was not my hunger. I was not my physical appearance. And I would later go on to know that I'm neither my abundance, nor possessions, nor intellect. For better or worse, none of us are. We are not our economic circumstance. We are not our possessions. We are not our trauma. It is not our circumstances, but our responses that shape and define who we are. And I somehow knew then, and know even better today, that none of us, that each one of us is far greater than we can possibly comprehend. Each one of us as something to contribute. We all matter.
Yeah.
And it really has been such an example of, the things that you think are the worst thing that ever happened to you. And it took me, 53 years to figure out. It was actually a gift. So this is a story of a girl named Gotsu. If I showed you her, who knows who this is? Anyone? Yeah? And if you've seen the picture, she's standing there with a pink striped shirt. So I'm going to read to you this moment. Now we're in Zimbabwe, and I think it covers it really well, but I'll back up if we need more. It's so crazy. At last, we drove down the dirt road to the school where we were expected several hours before. Every moment seemed to tick loudly, reminding us how much time had passed. We pulled up at the school where the headmistress quickly greeted us. There were hundreds of girls waiting. And although we brought enough materials to teach 200 girls, due to the various delays, we only had time to teach one group of 75 how to make the kits on treadle machines while simultaneously teaching the education. And there was no way this outcome was going to be anywhere near what we hoped. The teachers divided the girls into three groups. Girls lined up at treadle machines. Other girls stood near the chalkboard to hear the basics of health education, and a third group learned how to use and care for the kids before rotating to another station. Still other girls, whom we could not possibly teach this time, leaned into the windows and doorway and pointed to themselves. Me, pick me. It was heartbreaking. We had no choice. There was nowhere for us to stay, and there was no way we could miss the meeting with Dr. Coulthard the following day, the Minister of Education of Zimbabwe. We finished what we could and promised that Linda and the others would return as soon as possible, leaving the remaining fabric as token of our promise. It took Linda 4 months to make the long journey back, and when she arrived, the headmistress said the fabric was gone. Linda was devastated. Why? The fabric was made into those kits you showed us. Really? Who was able to do that? Have you ever volunteered with Days for Girls? Do you know how much work it is to? I mean, this is a labor of love, and it is not necessarily easy in any way. I was as shocked as Linda when she told me that someone in that group had managed to absorb enough information in that short period of time to actually be able to construct DFG kits for all the remaining 200 girls. We wondered who could remember every single step after seeing the entire process only once. It was 12-year-old Gotsu. The photo Linda sent shows her standing in a pink striped shirt with a big smile on her face. She had not only remembered the instructions, but it also helped every girl make a kit. And she also used the small scraps of moisture barrier fabric to make little pouches for the girls to put their soil liners in. A true Days for Girls champion and an innovator too. When asked what she felt about it all, she said, I am no longer an orphan. I am a leader of women. Is this okay or is it feeling slow? Are we okay? We're okay together? Okay. Joy has approved it. She's got chops, so we trust her on this. All right. This is in the very western part of Nepal, high up in the mountains. Don't tell Don. Okay, he's read the book now, so these were the worst roads I have ever seen. And I've been on some roads, trust me, the worst. About halfway down, they told me that, but then when they said that, I said, oh, I've been on some roads. And I have. I've been on some with you. Oh my word. It was like, it was so bad halfway through. I'm like, my family's going to kill me if I die on these roads. Please don't let me die on these roads. And it was something else. So we got all the way there. Here's what we came for, and here's what happened. By afternoon the next day, the village we were aiming for appeared perched along the slope at the top of the hill above us. Romeo, our driver, skillfully managed the last of the serpentine roadway that led to it. Over a lunch of spicy curry potatoes, vegetables, and delicious fresh roti flatbread, Leela spoke again of chapati. Women consigned to chapati are not only considered untouchable, but are not usually permitted traditional milk, honey, or ghee. At mealtimes, they are often limited to a plate of breadcrumbs or rice, and the risk to others is considered so great that their plate is pushed to them over the ground from a distance so as not to risk touching it at the same time. That untouchable. Chapati is an exile that doesn't exempt you from work, except for cooking. You're not allowed to cook. And you can't eat normal food or be with your family or sleep inside where you're safe, warm, and dry when you're on your period. You can do none of those things. As a young woman, Leela hid in the forest and in caves during her period. I didn't understand what it was. I was afraid of the dark at night, and I didn't have enough clothes to shelter from the cold, and I could not be in the warmth of my family. The last girl reported to have died during the isolation of Chapati suffered a snake bite while waiting alone. Her shed was a clay structure just big enough for her to sit in at the edge of her family's plot on a steep mountainside where she waited out the days before the cleansing ritual. For days, every month, menstruators become untouchable. How untouchable? Untouchable enough that families, women, girls, and communities feel compelled to risk their lives for something basic to their biology, for something that connects us all, menstruation. Knowing the dangers, why would families risk the lives of their daughters, mothers, and friends, despite being outlawed and later made a finable offense at the end of 2018? Why does the practice go on? Consider that almost everything we associate with blood is illness or injury, and if you truly believe that being in your home could possibly cause ill fortune or even death to your family, could any law or fine be able to convince you to risk their lives? If you didn't know what menstruation was, and your tradition held firmly to defining it as a curse, it would be easy to believe you are untouchable, and you would do anything to protect your family. It goes on, and I just want to say, Days for Girls, Nepal has now freed more than 20,000 women and girls from the sheds. And in some communities, they're tearing down the sheds with their own 2 hands. So now I get to tell you about a moment, and I'm tempted to just turn to the page and read it really quickly to you, if I could find it. But let me try to tell you briefly. It was one of the most extraordinary moments. Imagine that you're in a community where there's something called dusting off. Dusting off is the practice in Malawi, one of the places that has the highest child marriage rates in the world. And this dusting off means that when your period starts, you are purified by a hyena, which is a man who is paid to purify you because your period starts, leaving you at risk of pregnancy and transmitted diseases because your period started. And so this practice is one they were taking on. And so the first lady of Malawi, and one of my favorite people in the world, a woman named Chief Teresa. Now, Chief Teresa's father and 2 brothers died, the 2 brothers under suspect circumstances. And then the president said, you get to be the provincial chief now. And she said, no, thank you. This is a smart woman. She is in the royal line, but she didn't want to give up her job as secretary of the university, not secretary, but secretary of the university. But she eventually went home and became the provincial chief over 900,000 people. And she said under 2 circumstances, I will annul any marriages that are made with children. I will annul them. So if you want me to do it, you have to know that's what you're signing up for. And the second is no more dusting off. So we are at this event where the First Lady, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Gender, the Minister of Health, local provincial chiefs, 7 chiefs of the area, and Chief Teresa, and they're declaring this day, no more dusting off. In this moment, in this field, the PA system went down. And the remarkable Minister of Gender stood up and she just put her hands up and she said, you must stop taking your daughters and sending them for a prize for marriage. No more. We end this now. You must daughters, you must stay in school. You must choose that for yourself because that is your future and you are our future. She went on the most beautiful. She had the cameramen going like, woo, because she was bringing it. And her voice echoed and everyone was so quiet they could hear it. Thousands in a big ring around her speaking. There's photographic evidence. And suddenly in this crowd of 600 girls that had just had had Days for Girls Education and Kids, 600, under this enormous tree, and they're standing to the right. And all of a sudden, this little whirlwind of wisp of leaves and debris went up like 15 feet in the air, and I'm going, is anyone else seeing this? Because it wasn't even that windy, right? And I'm distracted as she's talking, watching this, and it releases over the girls' heads. And they sat there and brushed their heads off. And I went, they will dust their own heads off. Thank you very much. It was profound. So in this community, they went on and talked to people, and people reached 10,000 people where their enterprises made kits that created jobs, and they're the leaders. 10,000 along the way. The roads were so treacherous. And this, my friends, came in as an app on my phone. On WhatsApp, I could read it to you from my phone. But it's also the closing thing here. You ready? This is the message that came in. Months later, a WhatsApp message came in from Yami Kani of the Malawi team, who had traveled on down many treacherous roads far from the place I had last seen them. August 5th, 2021. As the team was packing up to go, after our kickoff event at Chilambando Primary School ground, a group of boys lingered round. One of the girls that had attended our AWH training, Ambassador Women's Health Training, and had received the kit was walking past the boys. Malandia Kutundu, you have received a package, one of the boys called out. His friends jeered rudely. The girl was not embarrassed. Instead, she faced them and said to their face, Malandia Kumene, yes, I have received. I will proudly carry it without shame because I have learned today that menstruation is not something to be ashamed of. I need to embrace it and be proud of it because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. She then strolled away, a victory smile on her face. This made our team so proud to know that we, have made a huge impact on the life of this girl who could now be so brave. It took 4 years to write this book because I wrote it on planes, trains, and in between, and also because how do you choose which story? How do you choose which story? And I hope that the stories in here have you feeling seen and heard, and that you recognize the good that you've done as supporters of Days for Girls and those who support menstrual equity. Thank you for helping tell the story. And thank you, Milo and team, for really hosting our very first official book signing, because the more people that find this, the more we can end something that can change on our lifetime, in our lifetime right now on our watch. There are a lot of things that are hard to change in this world. Menstrual inequity is not one of them. This we can do in our lifetime. And I just have to acknowledge that you showed up on this day. And that is a great privilege for me. Thank you.
Tell me what your new number is for how many you've reached.
Oh, thank you. You ready? Who's going to do the drum roll? And now it's over 3 million women and girls.
I'm so glad that you shared those, and they reminded me of when I was reading the book. One of the things I was struck by over and over was that the premise of the organization is bringing reusable menstrual products to girls who need them, and that in itself is huge, important work. But over and over, it opened up even bigger conversations about their bodily autonomy. And there's an orphanage where abuse is uncovered, and there's a town where you're talking to them about female genital mutilation, and over and over, like it happens again and again in this dusting off. And I wonder if you had any idea when you set out to start this that it would be touching so many people in so many ways.
Oh no, Not at all. I was thinking that we were helping girls go back to class in one place. I had no idea this was a global issue. And really, it's proof of how people stepping up and answering the next question and the next question. It's also proof that something so basic connects us all, and it's why we need to take it on. And if this is one of the keys to shifting violence, gender inequity, and so many other things, what else are we missing?
Right.
So I love that the real other message in this book is that we can come together and make miracles happen. And so we should each stand where our heart calls us, because we can change difficult things. I say this is the New York of issues. If you can make this one happen, you can make any of them, right? And so if we can do this, we can take on all the things we fear and turn it into hope for the things we can create together.
Yeah. And the difficulty in the issue is this taboo we have, right, around something that happens to half of the population. There's you mentioned in the book there was a women's investment group that was going to give a bunch of money, and then at last minute they backed out because they were a little icky about the organization. And that I met with a book club for Code Red, and there's this group of 10 to 12-year-old girls who they were going to have a bake sale and raise money, and they wanted to, they do this regularly with the book they read, that has a theme, they raise money to support. And they said, but we kind of don't want to say period poverty or menstrual health, so we're just going to say women's health, which for 10-year-olds, okay. But as grown-ups, we should be able to talk about something that happens to half of the world. And you're just so fearless about getting out there and saying, no, let's say this out loud. Let's talk about it. Where does that come from in you?
I think it is back to the beginning of like, why be afraid of the things that we are? Like, there shouldn't be shame. I mean, this is incredible what our incredible bodies could do, right? And because I had to survive many things, I actually faced people considering that I wasn't worthy to be at tables because of my background, because of where I live, because of my religion, because of my sex, my gender, over and over, I showed up in engineering, they went, what are you doing here? And like there was only one other junior in the program, and over and over, and I got to feel what it feels like to have someone say, you don't belong at this table. And I think no one should face that. We need everybody at the table. We all matter. Everybody. And it isn't just our strengths, it's also the weaknesses we have that make us able to see things in ways that others can't, see the pieces that we can come together in. And we truly need all of us. So that's what I believe. And so I was like, go ahead, tell me I shouldn't be at this table.
And you do come at it in the book. It's very clear that you're coming at it from a personal place. And you read that very first story with the bare feet when you had no shoes. And, I went into it knowing that this was a book about Days for Girls. And I had no idea there was going to be so much of you. And there's a lot of very personal memoir, but we really see how this comes out of your life, out of the things that have happened to you, and that you know what it is to not be able to afford something as basic as shoes or as basic as hygiene supplies. What was the process of putting all of that life experience and then this organization that you have built into a book?
Okay, that was a thing. So the truth is that at first I wanted to write it just about Days for Girls and the stories, because that's enough and that's important, right? And I'd written, a friend that has a small press here in Seattle said, go ahead and send me what you've got, and then I'll give you feedback. I want you to have a bigger press, but send it. And so I sent her the part about this opening of learning about the Apple moment, right? I sent that that was the prologue, right? And this is what I learned. And then it went, here I am in Kenya. And she wrote an email reply that just said, call me. So I call her, and all she says is, she goes, yeah, you don't get to do that. You don't get to say this amazing. You were without a home, and you went through this, and then I'm in Kenya, because you lead in a very unique way, and I've been around you, and you don't see it, but you need to tell us that And then I tried avoiding it. I really did. And then they go, what about this? What about this? And actually, a good friend in this room said, because I'm like, I do not want to do that. I don't want to make this about me. I do not want to do that. And she said, Celeste, you have sacrificed a lot of things for Days for Girls. What if this is just one more? What if you need to share your story? Shoot. Yeah. And so I started doing that. And I have to tell you, it was so hard. I tried it 4 different ways. Me woven this way, that way, me further, me, and it kept going. Come in, Celeste, lean in. And then I have to tell you, just 2 months ago, we were having a meeting with the publisher. I said, it was about the book jacket copy. And they wanted way more about me. I said, no. It could be some, but I need it to be like both. And it doesn't feel like both right now. And so we went back and forth. I said, I know what we can do. Just take out the part about me. Can we take out the part about, that would solve this whole problem. Let's take out, and she goes, no. And then she said, it's already being printed, Celeste, and no. It was, and I have to tell you the last few days that you know how you get a song going through your head? So understandably, the song round control to major dominant going through my head, but in a way that I didn't expect. It's kind of like I felt like I was stepping out of the ship and I was in the helmet and all I could hear was because I felt so vulnerable. It's like, what have I done? The whole world will be able to pick this up and it's theirs now. And I just gave me, and I just felt like, and then this morning, I realized, okay, we get to change the song. We get to choose the song. And so we changed it to a fun one that is about us, not about we, because I believe this is all about the power of we. And so we changed it from ground control to this is how we do it. So for the rest of the time, I'm just going to go, look what's possible. And it doesn't matter what they think or how they interpret it. This is how we do it.
Yep. I often liken putting a book out into the world as taking your beating heart out of your chest and handing it over to other people. And in building the organization, you have always, it seems, been so focused on meeting everyone else's needs, making it about everyone else. And so, to share your story, and you're sharing your story in service of sharing the story of Days for Girls. Like, it really is there to show how personal it is, show what the drive is behind it, help other people find a way into the story. Like, it really is there in support of that. But I can imagine it feeling very, very vulnerable when you are used to being about helping everybody else. But in writing that, you are also helping, because you're helping to elevate the story for so many more people to know about. I just love it. I was thinking about how you're this world traveler and you run this global organization and you interact with a lot of people in a lot of places. Writing is very isolating. What was the process like for you? Now I know you have a background in writing, you have an MFA in creative writing and everything, but this is your first book, right? Yeah. So what was the process? Did somebody come to you and say, will you write a book about this? Or did you decide you were going to?
I guess a few people had asked, like an agent, but it wasn't that tipped it. It was, I came back and I would tell everybody, guess what happened? And also we have a regional conference of Days for Girls. And also this happened, here's the photo. And also this happened. And then I just went, man, I need to record this story. And then it kind of just drew me. I mean, I am not kidding. You can ask people that traveled with me. In fact, some people stopped being my roomie. They said, she needs her own room. Because I would write, between they bring me the meal and the drink, and I'm like, and I would write. I get up at 4 a.m. and write until my meetings. I would write in the hotel bathroom because I had a roomie and I was disturbing them. And so I go into the bathroom and sit there in the dark so I wouldn't discourage them, because it became, I wanted to tell the story, but not just tell the story. I wanted to remember and recall and capture the sounds. I wanted them to feel the women dancing. or I wanted them to feel their stories as I got to hear them. So I wrestled with the words. I would sit there, in one scene in the book, I sat there and I was running through my mind trying to describe what it was like for one part of my life. And I was running it through and through. And then when I hit the moment, the phrase, it was the phrase, she was a frail winged phoenix coming and going right before our eyes, ashes to ashes. We all fall down. And I went, oh, I just wept because I went, that's it. So I wrestled with the phrases until they weren't about extra words. It wasn't about me. It was transporting people so they could see the miracles I had seen.
Mm-hmm. And you do that really effectively. Were there lessons that you have learned in your work with Days for Girls that you were then able to use in the writing process?
Oh yeah. So Days for Girls, we have had a small team, and I in the beginning was communications, website designer, and all the things. And so all of those years of writing the story and trying to talk about it, something that was so taboo that people would cancel my writing engagement or my speaking engagements, the things that you described as well. How do you say it in a way that people don't reject it, that people can bring it in and consider it? So I wrestled with words for the entire journey of Days for Girls. And so this was just keep going.
Another thing that I really appreciated so much in the book was that when you would come into these communities, and you talk a little bit about in the beginning making some mistakes in this way, but that you quickly learned that you needed to listen to the people about how they do things and why they do them before, and to not just jump in with solutions. I was particularly struck with this in the female genital mutilation chapter, which you met with a group of people who were called the Cutters in their group who did this, and but you were very careful. You described the meeting about how you talked to them and you asked them about the process and why this is done this way, and you were very careful not to shame. And I just wonder, because you are, coming in as a privileged American into places, and I think that that's so important. Can you talk about that learning process and how important that is in the work?
This is one of the embarrassing things about the book, because I have been transparent, right, about showing up in a community, and they were describing, you'll get to read it, they were describing, we were trying to get an oven made, a brick oven made, right? So Don was here and he's getting ready to give them the money, and I'm arguing with him. I'm thinking I'm being judicious and smart. And it turned out that I was completely backwards, and they were the ones being patient with me. And so I did learn that. And then with the Cutters, here's what I know. Raise your hand if you like being made wrong, having someone tell you how bad you are, right? No, right? None of us do. But in development, we so often make people wrong. What is the point of that? And in truth, do we think we're really so smart? Do you know in the 40s, doctors advised pregnant women to smoke so they wouldn't be hysterical, so the baby would be more calm. Right? We learn better. So the truth is, we are all cultures learning, all cultures and people learning. So why do we need to come shame someone? And so by saying, what if we made a new decision? By doing that, by being open and listening, tell me about these parts. You aren't doing it for effect. You're doing it because you really want to understand. People feel that when you're being genuine. And I had no business in this conversation. I tried to get out of it. I said, what do I have to do with that? And they're like, no, you talk about women's things and you should. And I was like, okay, really the only thing I could see I could do was have a conversation. And I believe those are powerful. But in that conversation, I honestly found the places where we could honestly admire each. I wanted to hear, and so I spoke to the things I could genuinely esteem. I love that you get together as a community and celebrate their woman now. I love that you dance and celebrate together. I love that. And I'd studied ahead, so I knew the things that I could genuinely admire. And then I said, can we talk? Now let's talk about the cut. And every arm in the room went, there were 50 people. I thought there'd be 6. And then they just I, again, didn't shame them. I'm like, the law has not been able to stop you. And the new constitution will not be able to stop you. We are not here to stop you. Who are we to tell you what to do? You're the esteemed leaders. You're looked up to, highest paid women's role here. What if you made a new decision? What if you catch all of your rich tradition and just cut out the cut? And then I invited them to take purple ribbons, and the result was a drop of cutting by 30%, a group of women that were advocating for it to change, who invited everybody in the community. And this would not have happened if I came in telling them what to do. We don't like being told what to do. If you invite me to do something, I will walk this planet with you. I will do whatever I can. But don't tell me what to do. It's really ugly.
And you say in the book, you say this is useful advice in this kind of work and also in raising children. You say the invitation to do something or the what if you question. I have 2 teenagers and I took notes on that. There's also a really lovely scene where your husband is talking to a group of boys while you're inside in a meeting with the girls, and they're asking about how you respect him if he doesn't hit you. And I can't remember how it came up, but it's in the book, it's relayed that you invited them in the same way. It wasn't, you shouldn't hit women. It was, what if you see how Celeste treats me when she comes out here? And inviting them into watching what that kind of respectful relationship was, which I really appreciated it reaching the entire community, not just the girls in the room, but your husband's out here talking to the boys, and the men are seeing their women come home with these things, and just the reaching effects everywhere just feel like they're spread like wildfire.
Isn't it incredible?
It's so incredible. And it feels like, your husband is this ambassador, and you're these women who've come tonight to share because they're so excited with their chapter work, which is so exciting so your infectiousness, and your positivity and your vision for this is really just so contagious.
It's time for us to take this one up. Don't you think?
Absolutely. It's past time.
Yeah. And they are amazing. We always say, these volunteers took on the thing. They could have said, I do wells, I do hunger, I do education. They're like, I do periods. They're amazing. And it has been just a joy. And it is my experience that when we look for things to be grateful for, and we look for things that we can acknowledge in each other, and we invite, that's where miracles happen.
That's fantastic. So I wanted to leave room here for questions from you all. So does anybody have anything that you would like to ask Celeste?
I have something I want to say to Celeste.
This is Lou Rochelle. She has an amazing chapter here.
So I just want to acknowledge how you have changed my life. I'm president of a sister city association. We do wells, but we do periods.
Yes, you do.
And to date, we have taken and delivered 4,863 kits. Made by women here in Seattle. And we felt that it didn't make sense to go all the way around the world and make connections if we didn't make connections here. So my church, which is First African Methodist Episcopal Church on Capitol Hill, Beth Shalom Synagogue, Bethel Hassan Mosque in Monroe, and Assumption Catholic Church. And we were before COVID, you know how we measure everything by COVID now, but before COVID, we would rotate to each of those places to make kits because we wanted people to sit down with each other, eat, talk, laugh, have a great time with each other rather than using the artificial barriers that we create. And just doing this work has helped me understand. I've been to Africa 17 times, but I've learned so much because we were distributing the Days for Girls kits. And I had some preconceived notions about what things we would find, even though I had been already. I thought the men were not going to want to be talking about that. And they were like, yeah, well, yeah, periods. And the girls would say, my dad, when I thought I was dying because I saw blood, and my dad said, oh, that's a period. You're becoming a woman. I'll go and get you some pads. And so I had to get rid of some of the notions that I had about how Cameroonian men were going to behave. So it gets back to what you're saying is go in with this open heart, open eyes, open mind, because we don't know what we'll know. And we say no periods, no people.
Yes, yes.
And we tell men particularly, and women, there's some women who won't talk about periods. And we say, okay, let's practice now. Let's say period. Period. And one of our guys said, okay, Lou Rochelle, I've been practicing. I'm going to say, and he just couldn't bring himself to say it. But I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to make periods a household term and to give us the freedom. When I was a kid, we spoke in codes about periods, right? And now we just walk up to people and we brought you some things to talk about your period. And they're going, oh. So you have been such a gift, and we appreciate all those visits you made to our chapter. And we're going to have a book signing at the church so that we can sell more books.
I would love
And I'm buying those 6 that are on the table.
Those are mine.
No!
And I'm part of Dave's to Girls because of you.
Yes,
You guys
because me-
came to our church at Cross of Christ Lutheran, and you got us started.
We
And
did.
We did. And now
Yes.
then we have all the kids over in Tanzania.
Oh, wonderful.
this.
Community. That's
Oh,
what
yeah,
you're
right?
feeling.
And
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
powerful too.
So that's why we do it. And we raised what? Last year was it $5,000 or $6,000 to go over to our enterprise that we have in Tanzania, and then they make them over there, and then Jason checks it out for us to make sure it's all going fine. So we do it to the secondary school mostly because that's where we've been part of. We do it to nursing school, and they said that's really cool because when you give the kits to the nursing students, then they distribute the knowledge out in their practice. We do the plaster house. It's in Arusha. And then that's the one that, they do surgery. So if there's women that are lactating when they come in, then they can get the kits. So if there's teenagers, they get the kits, and then one more school. So we do 4 sites in the Arusha area of Tanzania. And it's really cool. We get all
I can
excited.
hardly wait to tell that.
Right? This has helped me reach 3 million
Yeah.
girls. It's a miracle.
Are there any other questions for Celeste about the book or the organization or?
Okay, she needs to talk.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Oh, me, not the mic.
Okay. I'm just so happy and so grateful to be here. Okay, my name is Severina Lemachokoti. I'm a Kenyan. Come from the Maasai community or Samburu community. I met with Celeste. I don't know if I'll call her mom, sister, everything. I met with her at the UN one time and we just connected. And I loved her so much. And I'm one of the board members of Days for Girls Kenya and at the international level. And I would like to welcome you all to this event and to thank each of you for, working with Celeste to this point. I have, special memories of Celeste in Uganda, just working in the Uganda University, teaching people and teaching young women and girls how to make kids, crisscrossing Kenya and here in the United States, just talking about Days for Girls. And when she started writing her book, one day I came and then we were going to UB Island.
Yes.
And then we were stuck in the jam and then the traffic. And then you pulled out your laptop and you started writing. And she was like, Severina, I need to hear your story. And I'm like, you already know my story, and no, you need to write a book. And I'm like, Celeste, it's you who is writing a book. It's not me. Let's focus on Days for Girls. Let's focus on you. But then we kind of like just talked and we started crying. We cried, we had, because it doesn't matter where we come from. What we go through as women is the same. It's just that we come from different continents, but what we go through is just the same. But how we make life define us, it's our choice.
Up to us.
It's up to us. And that is what she told me that day in the car. We cried, but then at night, I received an email. She already wrote my story like 3 pages, no, 3 paragraphs. And I'm like, she wants me to start writing my book. And yes, I will. But I told her, let's do this first. Let's launch her book. And I promise you that I'll be wherever you be to launch your book, and I'm here. Yeah, so
That's good.
this lady is amazing. She has transformed a lot of lives, and firsthand I've seen it, and she has transformed mine. Whenever I'm down, I lost my mom. She could call me at night, every time telling me that everything will be okay. Yeah. So she's a mom, she's a sister, she's everything. I love her so much. And Dawn, thank you so much. On behalf of all Kenyan girls and women that you guys have touched, thank you, and may God bless you. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you, your family.
Wrap it up. Thank you for sharing. Thank you everyone for sharing. Can I get a selfie of all of you?
Oh, geez.
We do that, please? Okay, I need you. Okay. Thank you, Bria. My daughter Bria has been our photographer here. Are you ready? Because otherwise, how will they know you're here, Joy?
Oh, my goodness.